Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
So, Pete, we talked about it last week, and we said that we would do a deep dive into the new Ghostbusters. Are we ready for that now?
Yes, I've seen it.
So, Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is now the fourth in the Ghostbusters franchise, right? There's
Fourth in the franchise, but officially the third in the trilogy. The 2016 reboot has been kind of pushed to the side, rightfully or wrongfully. Not going to say yes or no, but I am gonna. This movie confirms that it's basically been pushed to the side.
Yeah, I think officially, if you're looking at kind of the storyline, it goes Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, and then there's a big gap, and now we have Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is basically the continuation of that story, from the second Ghostbusters. Although it to an extent, spoiler alerts, we're giving it early this time. Spoiler alerts. It doesn't necessarily acknowledge Ghostbusters 2 in terms of the storyline, right? You don't even need to have seen Ghostbusters 1 to understand this movie, but there is a lot of throwback to the original Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters 2, I think there's really nothing that it takes from that, and it just kind of like plays on it, but it doesn't really acknowledge it specifically.
Yeah, I think when the little girl is doing the research on her grandfather, you see a few clips or maybe a few like references to it, or maybe that was just my mind filling that blank in. But you're right. I think theoretically speaking, if you don't want to see Ghostbusters 2, you don't have to, and that's fine. It wasn't.
I don't think you should, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't disagree. It's some great quips by Bill Murray, but other than that, maybe not the best of films to watch.
Yeah.
So let's maybe give a recap of the film. The film's set in current day times, so we've now gone. We're talking 30 years, 40 years from the last time we saw the Ghostbusters in action from the 80s, and the story revolves around Egon Spengler's grandkids, in particular his granddaughter, and then we don't really know what's going on with them. They're kind of in a bad shape financially, and they're moving, and you find out very quickly that Egon Spengler has died, and that the whole Ghostbusters team has kind of been fractured because of something he did. We're not sure why, and
the friendship is damaged.
Not just the friendship,
damaged,
even the family, right? Like, because he was the business, and then of course, so his daughter has a fractured relationship with Egon Spengler. We don't know why, and then we discover that he's been doing a lot of research, and he thinks that there's a resurgence, or there's going to be a potential resurgence of. Correct me if I'm wrong. The ghost's name was Gozer?
Yes, there's Gozer. Gozer and the Keymaster. That's right.
Yeah, so there's a resurgence of this ghost / living god / evil being. He thinks that's going to happen, so he steals all the proton packs. He steals everything from the Ghostbusters business, runs away to this...
Including
Ecto 1. And runs away to this podunk town in the middle of nowhere.
Drives away to Somerville. Yeah. Not to be confused with Smallville.
Not to be confused with Smallville, thankfully. And then that's the mystery that everyone has to uncover as to what's happening and why that's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that one of the things that was. So first of all, let me say that's a very good recap in terms of how we got from Ghostbusters 1 to Ghostbusters Afterlife. One of the things that struck me was that it's a very coherent story. I mean, it's really difficult after 25, 30 years to start up a franchise again and have a coherent story, because obviously, the original cast members are dramatically older. One of them, as you mentioned, the actor who played Egon Spengler passed away. It's super difficult to have kind of a continuation of that. And you saw it before me. And one of the things that you mentioned that really stuck with me was you really liked, the throwbacks to the original. They weren't so much Easter eggs. They were just, nods to the original. And I think we see that with, some of the, the integration of the YouTube clips, where, his, Egon's granddaughter, Phoebe, is kind of watching these clips of her grandfather, which are actually clips taken from, I guess, the original movie, the 1980s movie. So I thought that was a very good
commercial.
way
That's right.
that they kind of integrated that. I'm a little bit surprised given if we're picking at the storyline, you mentioned, how, Spengler, basically stole the proton packs, took Ecto-1, went across country to this, town, which I guess is in Iowa or someplace, called Somerville, and basically identified this was now going to be, the epicenter for all these, ghost beings or such, and basically did this all by himself. And that seems like a good storyline, but obviously I think that doesn't really make sense in the context of the Ghostbusters, friendship or partnership. I mean, it seems like he probably would have explained himself a little bit more if we're really looking at this from a more a realistic or practical or common sense basis. And he probably would have given some instructions in terms of, hey, just so you know, I'm doing this, so be on standby. I mean, because we saw it in kind of the opening scene, that he died, and if he's responsible for the world, he probably should have had a backup plan where he gave someone else, some information, or the keys to the property, so to speak, to make sure that, things were managed in his absence. So I found that to be a little bit of a plot hole, but again, I think we're picking at it unnecessarily from that perspective.
I think if you're looking at this just on the surface without the nitpicking, theoretically that's the role that his granddaughter fills, right? Is that she's there to kind of look at the clues that he's left, to look at the plans that he's left, to decipher that, Gozer's coming back and in a bigger and badder way. So, I mean, they laid the foundation throughout the movie that no one believed Egon, right? The original Ghostbusters didn't believe him. Everyone in the town didn't believe him. They all thought that he was a nut job. And that's right, a dirt farmer. So I think in that sense, that's probably the role that the kids have to fill, which they did a very good job of. I must say, I was very impressed with, I don't know the actress's name, actor's name, the little girl. I thought Phoebe, so I thought she was very good. I definitely got
Phoebe
Egon Spengler vibes from her.
McKenna Grace.
So I thought that was very good. I think some of the things probably can't be explained very well, which is how is an 8-year-old fixing nuclear reactor proton packs, having never seen one in her life before?
Well, this goes back to, I think, one of the potential lists that I raised maybe last week or the week before, which is movies where children or kids, act like adults. And by all accounts, the character Phoebe, I mean, her brother was 15, right? Her brother was 15 pretending to be 17. He is older than her, so let's give her 13, 14. I mean, a 13, 14-year-old, irrespective of how...
Oh, you're being generous with 13, 14, but yeah.
Okay, let's call her 12, 13, right? Even if, like you said, if she's just a teenager... I mean, as precocious, intelligent, mature as a 13-year-old can be, it's pretty much a stretch that, the world is saved by her. by her summer school buddy, goes by the name Podcast, which I'm partial to, and her 15-year-old brother, who is obviously failed his driving license 3 times, as they said in the movie. So I mean, I have, from a realistic perspective, again, we're being a little bit critical about it, because I mean, this is not intended to be a drama. This is intended to be a family comedy. I have a little bit of a problem with these 3 random kids between the ages of 12 and 15 kind of saving the world and driving vehicles and proton packs and all the other science and so forth that's involved. But suspending that for a while, I thought the cast did a very good job, and I'm happy that there were only 3 kids. I thought the 3 kids worked out well, the brother, sister, and then the podcast dude, that Phoebe met in her summer school class. I thought actually that dynamic worked pretty well. Obviously, the boyfriend or the brother had kind of a girlfriend who we find out is town sheriff's daughter, who for a split second I thought the sheriff may have been Winston or Winston's son,
right?
Something like that. I was waiting for something to happen there.
It would have been too coincidental, I think, and it would have been a bit weird for Egon to run away to a town, or for Winston to have a son there, right? That's my feeling anyway. But yeah, I'm glad he wasn't anyone in particular. I think that, and that actually that's a great segue. Is the reality is that they did what I thought was an admirable job in terms of managing your expectations with regards to the original Ghostbusters and with the nostalgia levels.
Yep.
So, and now we're getting into deep spoiler territory. But like at the end of the movie, of course, the 3 remaining Ghostbusters come in to help save the day. Yeah. Of course, that's not their job. They're just there to kind of man the fort while Phoebe gets the stuff done. But they show up, so you see a very old Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd.
Very old Bill Murray.
So
Dan Aykroyd doesn't look so. Yeah. I mean, he looks a little bit puffy, but he doesn't look so much dramatically older. Bill Murray looks.
Because
way old.
When I think of Bill Murray now,
and Winston kind of looks. I mean, Winston obviously looks more mature, but also
Bill Murray. The thing is that he's kind of now in the last maybe decade, 2 decades, whatever it's been, has been working a lot with Wes Anderson. So like when I see him, I think of Wes Anderson movies, and in each of them, he's got a distinct style or a distinct look that I've become so used to. That the moment he puts on a jumpsuit and straps on a proton pack, and then he looks the way he does, I was just like, oh man, he looks like a shell of his former self. Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
I feel like, I mean, again, we're picking holes in the movie, which overall I thought was quite enjoyable, but I didn't think that they needed to have the original Ghostbusters, just kind of like appear out of nowhere. Like I like the idea that Phoebe called the Ghostbusters line that she saw in the commercial. I like that Dan Aykroyd in the commercial, answered the phone. But I mean, the fact that they're kind of like battling the ghosts in the middle of the field, and then suddenly the 3 guys just show up. I just thought it was like unnecessarily parachuting them in. If they were going to, first of all, I didn't think they needed to be brought back. I would have been equally happy with the movie had they not been brought back. But since they did decide to bring them back, which I think is a nice touch, I thought it could have been finessed a little bit more elegantly in terms of, different storylines could have, revolved around that or could have incorporated that. So I thought it was a little bit abrupt how they appeared, but overall, I think I'm picking at something that doesn't need to be picked at.
Yeah, and again, I think, this is probably more Hollywood gamification, or maybe not gamification, but, strategizing in the sense that how do we get the Ethans and the Petes of the audience who watched the original movies in the cinemas 30 years ago, how do we get them back in the theater? If we hand the baton off to these 3 or 4 children who are brand new with an established IP, you kind of need someone to hand the baton off, right? And without it, the reality is, I personally like the movie enough that I didn't need to see them. You're right. But at the same time, I'm glad that they were there, because if they make a Ghostbusters Afterlife 2, right? And that's not in the realm of impossibility, because the film did really well, because the movie did really well, and there's lots of opportunities for them. And now you've got a younger cast, so there's there's room for
it
growth.
Seems
in
that it's
terms of
coming.
The
It
franchise
seems
now.
that it's coming. Yeah.
Then you want to.
Yeah.
How do you do that without upsetting without upsetting
Yeah.
me, without upsetting the millions of
Yeah.
other fans of the series, right?
Yeah.
Or without alienating them to the point where, like, you want them to come in and see the shows too, right? So in that sense, I thought it was great. I thought the nostalgia hit home hard when you see the ghost version of Egon. So these guys did a Disney version of the Force Ghost. Their version of the Force Ghost with Harold Ramis'
Patrick
likeness.
Swayze?
Huh?
I'm sorry, what are you saying? What was it a throwback to? With Harold Ramis?
Like a Force Ghost, like from Star Wars, where you see all these.
Got it.
So you see this glittering Harold Ramis who comes in at the very end.
Yeah.
Who kind of hugs his daughter, hugs his granddaughter, and kind of like apologizes without having to say a word, because obviously, he's passed away. There is no voice. There is nothing. It seemed a little weird that he wouldn't say anything, and there were a couple of moments where I thought he was going to speak, but then he kind of hesitated and didn't.
I think it was better. I mean, it was unnecessary, but I think it was a very sentimental nod. And I think if you're going to bring back the original three, you can't not bring him back in some way. I think that's just a little bit offensive, and I'm sure his estate would have had some issues with this as well, because I think he was really, one of the critical writers of the thing with Dan Aykroyd. So I think it's important that he was in there, but I thought it was a little bit unnecessary, but it was tastefully done. A little bit more tastefully done, actually, than Star Wars.
I would agree.
In some ways.
I would agree. And this is what I mean, in the sense that I liked that. That's what I meant, hitting the right notes of nostalgia and sentimentality. It wasn't too cheesy. It wasn't too much, and it wasn't too in your face. And it wasn't nostalgia for the sake of nostalgia. I think that's a nice way of wrapping up the original four the original four storyline. And if they want to continue with more Ghostbusters, they now have a path to do so.
Yeah. So let me shift a little bit and say, I know Paul Rudd is hot, but I thought he was exceptional in this movie.
Oh, really? What made you think that?
I mean, he was, in my opinion, he's the only person who had any type of comedic value. I mean, the three kids were not funny. I mean, they didn't have any zingers, they didn't have any one-liners, there were no real, running jokes.
They had children humor in podcasts, but not real, adult-related.
But not like ha-ha, laugh out loud, nothing, no good lines, right? Carrie Coon, who played Phoebe's mother, was very dour. I mean, they really kind of gave her a crappy script to run with. I mean, she was just negative about her father, obviously doesn't have a job, no financial resources.
Very one-dimensional.
Not particularly a warm parent either. So there's some probably separate issues we could discuss about how they wrote her as a very uncompelling figure, but there was nothing, no humor or comedic value from her. So where did the humor come from? I mean, what about this movie was at all funny? And I thought Paul Rudd absolutely carried it. Without him, I think this would have been a very, very shallow movie. But I thought that, Paul Rudd's, kind of zingers, one-liners, and his overall just kind of like understated charisma absolutely carried this film. And without him, this would have been something I think that would have been pretty bleak for us to watch.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about Paul Rudd's character, and I mentioned this to you offline, is that
Gary.
having seen him in The Shrink Next Door
You
and
told
having
me.
watched that
You told
series
us last time.
simultaneously,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is that, and this is a testament to Paul Rudd. This has got nothing to do with the film. It's not a criticism on the film
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's got more to do with me. It's got more to do with how good Paul Rudd is. In The Shrink Next Door, is he's so convincing as this creep, as this guy with an ulterior motive in The Shrink Next Door, that I was waiting for the other shoe to drop the entire time watching Ghostbusters. And there was an element.
That's a you issue. That's a you issue.
No, and I fully acknowledge that. That is 100% a Pete issue, in the sense that every time he was on screen, I was waiting for the other foot to other shoe to drop. I was waiting for him to have an evil turn, and it felt kind of almost like a relief that he ended up being the one of Gozer's minions, right? Because there was that moment of like that look of evilness when when he's running across the desert plains looking for the Keymaster or whoever the counterpart.
So he's Keymaster. He's looking for Gozer.
Or no, there's
He's
two,
the
right?
Keymaster.
I am the Keymaster was Rick Moranis, and what was Sigourney Weaver's role? It was something else.
I thought she was Gozer.
No, Gozer is the actual ghost, I'm pretty sure. Keymaster and, oh my god, I'm going to get my... Gatekeeper, maybe? I'm going to get my nerd credentials revoked.
Find out. But while you're doing that, let me address your point.
Gatekeeper is correct.
Which is this. Yeah, this is one of the dangers, and why you don't often see a lot of people in Hollywood, doing two at a time. Which is, one of the famous instances of this was way back in time. Michael J. Fox, who did Family Ties at the same time that he was doing Back to the Future.
Right.
Right? And you really don't see first of all, no one can do two films at the same time. Although we may see that with Mission Impossible and Top Gun 2, but that's only because of COVID release schedules. But no one can do two films at the same time. And it's very unique to do a film and a television series at the same time. So, I think Paul Rudd, just by virtue of the fact that he's so hot and he is in these two different things kind of at the same time, it does create a bit of dissonance. And I think it's one of those maybe unwritten rules or unintentional rules in the entertainment industry, which is be one character at a time so that the audience, like you, doesn't look at someone and get confused in terms of, this is Paul Rudd. Is it Paul Rudd, the Gary Gruberson teacher? Or is it Paul Rudd as Isaac, whatever his name is, in the Shrink Next Door television series?
Yeah. But
you raised I didn't see it the same way you did, but I thought that he carried this film, and I don't think I would have enjoyed it much at all had he not been in it.
I'm interested to see if they decide to make more. I don't know what the final box office tally is at the moment. But it did much better than expected, or at least I think it did better than expected. And in terms of critical reception, I can't speak to all critics, but I think on average it was taken pretty well. And I think most people would align their views with us in the sense that a good level of nostalgia without being too cheesy or sentimentality without being too cheesy. And that probably bodes relatively well if they want the franchise to continue.
Yeah. I'm not, when I look at the kids who would kind of take this over, the mom is out. Paul Rudd is, I guess, possibly still staying involved in some capacity, although he wasn't really a Ghostbuster. When I look at, the brother-sister, Phoebe Trevor, that could be a team, right? Because they're both the grandkids of Egon. Podcast doesn't really add much, and unless they're going to get the brother's girlfriend, right, Lucky, unless they're going to get her kind of involved, and it's going to be like these 3 or 4, I'm not really so keen on seeing those cast members go again. I thought they were great kind of as kids, and I thought it had good quality, but it's not like I really need to see a sequel of this unless they're really going to, advance the storyline a little bit.
Right. Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, having said that, they made Ghostbusters 2, and that was,
it was something. A few other points under the topic miscellaneous. The marshmallow, the cute little marshmallows.
Oh, that was
wonderful throwback. Super cute. I can see the family loving it. I don't get it. How did they appear? Right? That there was, and as far as I'm aware, there was no rationality for them to appear popping out of the bags in Walmart. Was there? Did I miss something?
So my feeling is that they started appearing after actually no, because Paul Rudd destroyed the protection device around the portal after he gets taken over by that monster.
Yeah, he went to Walmart, and it's not clear why Gozer was in Walmart, but or Gatekeeper was in Walmart, but he is in Walmart, right, where the Beast took him over, and it's not clear how the Beast got into Walmart or why Walmart, and the marshmallow dudes were in packaging. And they came out, right? So I think this was, again, I think it's a Hollywood trick. They needed a way to get a very cute, admittedly, very well done, kind of gimmick into the film. But in terms of the storyline and context, I felt like it was just absolutely inserted for no reason. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything.
No, remember the kids did, with Paul Rudd's help, the kids released one ghost? And that was the Gatekeeper or whatever, that monster, the Hellhound. And he was in the mountain terrorizing, and then he was like scaring the kids as well when they went up there. So I think you're right. I don't know why he was at Walmart, but he's at Walmart, and clearly wherever he goes, he brings that negative energy with him.
But the marshmallow dudes were super cute, I have to say.
But again,
after going big.
Yeah. And cute enough to justify them doing it, in the sense that, again, a nice touch of nostalgia and throwback to the first movie. And, and that's, I took that for what it was.
Do you notice that there is something, it's almost like like some type of like product safety that even like when the little marshmallow dude was lit on fire or in the blender, they always have to end that scene with a smile to like kind of let you know, hey, we didn't actually take a life. We didn't actually kill someone. Do you notice that?
I didn't, but it makes sense.
The guy is like, you could see them kind of like playing on the stove and making s'mores out of each other and so forth. But even if they were like burning in the flames, they would end with like a squeak and a smile. And the same thing, one got, mixed up in the blender, obviously. And ended up with just like a little smiley face on the side of the blender, just to kind of let the kids know we didn't actually kill a marshmallow. God forbid.
Yeah, I mean, it's creepy, certainly, now that you mentioned that, but probably for the benefit of any children in this audience.
Okay, so we give Paul Rudd, we give the cast excellent marks. Exciting to see Bill Murray and Winston and all the other folks, back in action again. And now we've got a very clear, I think, historical storyline, which is Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, which is kind of pushed to the side. Ghostbusters reboot, the all-ladies Ghostbusters, is obviously standalone, doesn't really fit into this timeline. And then there's now Ghostbusters Afterlife. And we'll see if we have another sequel to this, which I'm more or less expecting, because I think it will perform well, and I think there's probably enough that writers like ourselves could probably come up with to create another plot over this.
I think so too.
Okay, what's next on our agenda for today, Pete?
All right, so I was thinking we can talk about a show that you turned me on to, which I wasn't sure about, and then I watched the first season, and then I was all in.
Yellowstone. Okay.
I can't believe... So, two things. First of all, I can't believe that that's a show that got me home. That was not what I was expecting. If you told me 3 weeks ago that Pete, I want you to watch a cowboy-based show set in Montana, and you're gonna love it. I would have told you were crazy. You did tell me to do it. I watched it. I still thought you were crazy after watching the first few episodes. I stuck it through the first season, and then I couldn't stop.
Pete, what if I would have sold it in the following way? And we'll get to this later. What if I would have sold it as Succession, but based in Montana?
I 100% would have thrown all doubts away and watched it with open eyes. It was so good, and it really is the Succession. It's like a combination of Succession and Billions, and the Cowboys. It's good. I said it was excellent. I think it's an excellent show. I just found out that they're making a prequel.
Oh, no way.
Called 1837 or 1830 something.
Really?
Starring guess who? Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. Yeah. And they're playing the Duttons who moved from Texas to Montana.
Oh.
So this is like set 100 years or 150 years before the current show.
So tell me, you've only finished season 1, correct?
Oh, no. I'm caught up.
Oh, you've seen all 3 seasons. 3 or 4?
3, and I'm into 4 now.
Okay. All right. So we are going to have spoilers, but no spoilers for you, right?
I don't know. I think I'm up to date. I'm pretty sure I'm up to date.
Okay. So let's talk about the lead. The lead is Kevin Costner, right?
Love him. So
do you?
Kevin Costner as an actor, always a fan. Some of his depictions have been terrible.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's so nice to see Kevin Costner, a well-known Hollywood leading good guy, play someone who, and it's not to say that he's a bad guy in the traditional evil sense, I'm going to kill everyone for the sake of killing them, but he's certainly not the protagonist in a good way, in the sense that he's more like he's almost like an anti-hero, right? Like he does the things that he does for a good cause or for a good reason. Man, the things that he does are borderline cruel or just mean.
Yeah, I have to say, I think when you call him an anti-hero or anti-protagonist, that's absolutely right, because he's supposed to be this man of few words, hardened, cowboy who has like a very clear moral compass, and he's supposed to be the morality of kind of everyone else around him, right? I mean, he's a leader, he's the boss, but yet I find myself not really liking him so much as a character, because the entire premise really revolves around him, keeping a huge piece of land, right? And using very poorly paid labor, to kind of manage all the cows, cattle, the fences, all the other.
A quick recap for our listeners. So Yellowstone is about a ranch in Montana, a cattle ranch in Montana, owned by Kevin Costner.
Called the Yellowstone Ranch.
And it's called Yellowstone. And it's been owned by that piece of land, and that ranch has been owned by his family for 7 generations.
Is it really 7 generations? Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they specifically say, 7 generations. Right. But okay, whatever it is, but it's a long time. And it's been passed down from father to son from father to son and on for a long time.
Yeah.
He has 4 children.
Yes.
One of whom dies, the eldest son, who actually dies almost immediately in the first series, in the first episode even, I think, maybe the second episode. And he has 1 daughter and 2 other sons. The youngest son, his wife was killed. We find out later she died because of a mistake on horseback because of her daughter, or it's been heavily implied. He's got so his daughter is like this high-functioning alcoholic sociopath. Really, sociopath is the right word, because she is insane.
So we both dislike Beth dramatically.
Oh my God.
Just dramatically. And there's a lot to unpack about this, but I agree she's a very unlikable character, although she has a very important role because she has a very big presence, on the screen.
I would say she's actually the most powerful of all the children in terms of she's the only one with the willpower to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done.
Yeah.
So, and then you've got the highly educated, Harvard educated lawyer son.
Yep. Jamie.
Jamie, who's got political aspirations. He's the family lawyer. He becomes the attorney general for the state. He wants to be governor of the state. He has political aspirations. And then you have the youngest son, Casey, who ran away from home, got married to a Native American girl against his father's wishes, had a kid, was kind of disowned from the family, but then gets reabsorbed into the family. Lots of drama there. So there's a lot of he's a white man married to a woman of color. And so there's a lot of racial tension there. That all plays into a lot of various subplots.
And he's from the military as well, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So, and you see that. You can see that because he carries himself well in terms of his fight. And you see that he went into the military to probably run away from his dad because his dad has been particularly cruel to him, not because he hates him, but because, he doesn't listen and, he's the young rebel. One of the things that makes you dislike Kevin Costner's character immediately is that what Kevin Costner does is he physically brands people who work for him, especially those that have disobeyed him or have wronged him in some way. So he's got
I have to say, can we unpack this a little bit? I mean, you and I are not cowboys. I mean, I think that's a very fair statement.
Yeah,
you and I are not cowboys by any definition. We don't know.
Not even the electronic kind. No.
Not even the electronic kind. We don't really know this lifestyle or this this way of life at all. So, I mean, what is the attraction for basically these kind of like drifters, or it's just a hodgepodge of folks, some of whom don't seem like so stupid and so like criminal. Why do they actually say, hey, I really want to come live in what amounts to like a very small dormitory, and I want to get paid basically nothing, and I don't really want any type of like life at all, and I just want to do like this very hard manual labor? Like, is this a thing? Is there an attraction to this? I mean, I would understand if they're all kind of like homeless people who are happy to get like 3 square meals a day and a warm roof over their head, but some of the folks actually seem like pretty decent, right?
So I think that you get some of them you've seen are people with no background or with criminal past or people who have no choice, right? We've seen that. So Jimmy is one of those guys. No choice. He really got forced into this hand. And I think some of them just in
Walker.
Walker, is that Rip?
Walker's the guy who plays the guitar. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. And then you have Rip as well. That's
Rip.
Right.
I mean, Rip was homeless. Rip makes sense, right? I mean, he was homeless. He was abandoned something, right? Walker
he killed his family. He killed his father. Yeah. He was on the run, and so so there's a lot of. So you
doesn't even have a driving license. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So you have some element of criminal past. I think for them, it's less of a choice and more of I don't have anything to do. Or if I really want to make some money or if I want to do something, this is the only way for me to do it. And I think for some, it's also, and again, this is me speaking as much of a city slicker as you could possibly be, right? Is that, is probably the guy is, that there's maybe an allure to the idea of, I want to be a day worker because I want to travel the land and I don't want to be tied down to a place. So I can work a few weeks here, exactly. Like the Wild West version of the traveling.
They're kind of like gypsies. They're kind of like gypsies.
So that's, I mean, again, I don't know. You're right. There's no appeal to me. Yeah. There isn't even like if there was a Westworld, there wouldn't even be an appeal for me to go to a place like the Westworld to experience that. Like that, the Wild West is not an appealing endeavor for me.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it hasn't got its charms, but not for me.
I mean, I can see what you said a little bit. Like, if it was, hey, I just need some time, I don't mind like spending some time with horses and being outside in the big sky and living with a bunch of dudes, and okay, we drink beer and we have a bunch of laughs, we play cards. I can see that as like a short-term, I mean, maybe not for me, I wouldn't choose it, but I can see that as a short-term attraction. Say, hey, I'm just in between gigs. I'm trying to get my feet under me. I'm trying to figure out where I go in life. The fact that you get branded, that they put a brand on your chest and you belong to them, you cannot leave. For me, that's the deal breaker. Like, I'm okay maybe saying, hey, I'm going through a tough time, just got divorced, out of the military, out of jail, I need something for a couple years or months, just to kind of like figure out where I'm going from here, and you kind of come and go. That's maybe understandable. But the fact that it's like, hey, now you're our property, you're going to live here forever. No medical plan, no savings plan, no anything, right? You're just basically forced indentured servitude. It seems like a terrible deal. And it's actually how Costner, right, and his Yellowstone ranch are able to kind of work, right? They've just got 8 to 10 people who are there. I don't know how much they make. They may make nothing and just get room and board, right?
$400 a week.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I remember it being mentioned because it was a very small plot point at one point.
Huh.
Yeah. But yeah, still, it's peanuts relative to the work that they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Which is it's hard work. It's meals may be free, room and board may be free, but still, man, that for $400 a week, you're still putting your life in a bull's hands.
That's absolutely true. So I think Kevin Costner plays that role very well, and I think it's a good role for him kind of at this stage in his career. I find his character is also a little bit limited. Like, he's a man of few words. He can't really express his feelings. He's negative about everything. Like, he's not really like a hard worker, but he always seems like stressed out and kind of like pessimistic, like obviously he lost his wife, all his kids have their various issues. He's all alone in a big house. But I mean, I just feel like it's a little bit trite in terms of he's always sitting in front of a dark fire, drinking whiskey, complaining about how he just wants to keep his own way of life. But I mean, he's got someone who does basically everything for him. I mean, it's like he was, as you said, Billions versus meets Succession. I mean, he could just as easily be in a, Park Avenue penthouse where he's got people to cook and clean and look after him. So the fact that he just likes, a big open space is, I think, the only differentiator.
I see him kind of like almost like a criminal boss.
It's a mob. It's a
like
little bit,
like a mafioso style boss, because he's the guy everyone comes to when they need something dirty done. And by the way, like, if this is what Montana is like, I'm never going there. Like, there's...
I mean, I might go to Montana, but I'm never going to talk to anyone because I feel like everyone's just going to like hit me with like a crowbar
or shoot me or stab me or throw me off a cliff. I mean, there is an inordinate amount of human to human inflicted violence in Montana.
Yeah. Often for no reason,
not just for no reason, but like also stuff that you wouldn't expect, man. Like casino guys are hiring mob hitmen to go after these people to blow up his daughter's office, and like they're doing stuff. And I mean, like, bless her cotton socks, the actress who plays Beth. I mean, she must be sitting in prosthetics and makeup for like an hour every day because she gets beat up more than anyone else in the show, right? She's literally been beaten up. She's been stabbed, almost raped. She got blown up, all in like 2 seasons.
So let me ask about the blow up incident. At any point did you think, this was the end of end of season 2 or end of season 3 where there is this coordinated attack?
I think it's 3.
Okay. Did you think that anyone was going to die?
I didn't think so.
I thought
it wasn't. I didn't feel like anyone was going to die, because each one of them has a very specific role to play, and nobody else in that show is overlapping in terms of roles.
I kind of thought that Beth would die, only because I thought it would. I mean, to be honest, I just thought someone had to die. It needed to be her, but also because I thought that it would play with Rip's character arc, which is Rip, the orphan who never finds love or never trusted anyone, never had. Finally gets married, finally finds someone who accepts him, and he comes to all his feelings, and he's in love, and then she's torn away from him. I thought that would be a pretty good arc, because to be honest, I couldn't envision him like being in a relationship. Actually, I just
But having said that, in the latest season, you get to see that, right? That's what you're seeing now, and it's a quote unquote softer side to the man, but softer in the sense that he's still a brick. He's still a tough guy, even with the kid that they've semi-adopted, taken under his wing. He's still a tough guy. There's a lot going on in that show.
Do you think there's a broader political message, or is there not really a message? Because I think there's two recurring themes, but I'm not sure if they're sideshows or if they're really intended to speak to the audience. And the first is, the kind of the land, and this is the way that the land is intended for, and our way of life, and we don't want big cities and all this kind of, plastic, I don't know. Concrete jungle kind of thing. And development. I think this is one of the themes that they kind of focus on a little bit. And the second one is kind of the Native American Indians, right? And, what their claim is to the land and their way of life a little bit. But to be honest, I feel like neither of these are both very, very good messages, actually. And I'd kind of be interested if they explored either of them further, because at least for the Native Americans, I feel like this is just a very, it's a really minimized side issue. And for the way of life, it's just something that I feel like Kevin Costner just spouts upon, but I'm not really seeing what the evidence of this is.
So in terms of politics in the show, you see a lot of politics, but it's very local, and it's not politics that, we're used to seeing on TV now, which is Democrats versus Republicans, or, the left versus the right in general. I think they're, for me, the implication is made that they're Republican, but it's not a party line issue. For them, I think it's very much, how do these laws affect my personal family and my ranch? That's it. I'm not interested in the far right. I'm not interested in the far left. I have no interest in any of that. And you see them touch on that a little bit here and there, like when his grandson gets not adopted. What's the word? Kidnapped. It's the exact opposite. Forcibly adopted. When his grandson gets kidnapped by the the implication is that they're like the militia, which is like this far right neo-Nazi-esque movement. But again, it's not about the fact that they're a far right neo-Nazi movement. They're just a militia. We're here to do, what we were hired to do. That's it. And then there's, like, in this current season, you have this protester who throws who attacks Casey, who's going after the ranching lifestyle, and she's kind of they kind of play her off as representing what's wrong with, like, the quote unquote California elite, far left, who don't really understand what's going on, but they just see a very small picture of the world, and they try to make sense of it.
That's right.
But again, that's not the point. I think both of those things, what the show's very good about is saying there are means to an end. But we're going to use this leftist, hippie, liberal woman to incite a blockade of the construction of the airport, which the Duttons are against.
I kind of like her. I agree. I kind of like her. And I thought that was a good balance to Beth.
To be determined. We've only seen her a couple times, and I think,
To be determined.
without getting too political, I think I have issues with her because I think she's
Yeah.
so realistic in the sense that there are definitely people like her out there that you're just like, I want this out. Which again, the show's good about. They don't really say.
That's true.
And he even makes that. She even makes that comment. I don't eat gluten. I don't do. These are all the things that he's totally against. Fundamentally. And but again, he doesn't use that as a talking point, and Beth is going to use that to her advantage to get what I assume is what she wants, right? Is for them to stop her company, who she's now working for as like a double agent, to get what she wants. And then, so everything that's done, his run for office, his all of this is done in an effort to get things done for himself personally, how to benefit the ranch personally, not because the writers want to make a point about the right being correct or the left being correct. It's irrelevant. Those are, what I admire about that is to say, look, the right is the right, the left is the left. These are just things, right? And these are things that are in the world, but I couldn't care less until they're on my doorstep, right? Because within that 50,000 acres, anything that happens outside, I couldn't care less. But anything that affects my 50,000, I'm worried about.
So, okay, let's look at this going forward. So, the season just ended, right? Or there's one more.
Is it over?
Is there one more or two more episodes in the season?
Yeah, something like that. I think there's a couple more episodes.
So where we left off is Kevin Costner is going to run now for governor. And purportedly it's going to be so that he can try to somehow, from the capital in Helena, Montana, try to put an end to the development which is taking place on and adjacent to, to his ranch.
Yes.
Beth is working for the company that's doing the development, although we believe that she's going to somehow try to sabotage those efforts. Rip is just going to be Rip. He's going to now find his parental, his parental part, and he's going to mentor, this young kid that they've kind of taken in, manage the ranch, and continue to,
He's been semi-promoted to like Casey's role, right?
Yeah.
Which is to say that he's now going to overview all of the ranch.
So, and Casey, where's Casey going?
He's running the police force, right? Or the agricultural police force or whatever. He's running that, and he's got two hats, right? Because he's a Dutton, and then he's also like looking after the community. So like whenever whenever there's an issue on the reservation and he helps, they always look at him with like, the Thomas Rainwater is always surprised, like, oh, wow, you're helping. He's like, look, my duty is to the people first, not my family. But of course, his father expects that it's going to be the family first, not the people. So he's got two hats there. I'm not a fan.
But tell me, where do you think his character goes? In the end of the season, the next season, where's his character going?
I'll tell you where I don't want it to go, and I'm afraid that this is going to happen because of what they've just introduced in the last.
It's going to happen.
I think so too, right?
He's going to leave. Are we thinking the same thing? He's going to leave his wife.
That stupid thing. It's so dumb.
It's going to happen.
It's bound to happen. It's going to cause more friction because this is now where I think they're doing drama for the sake of drama, right? And to sensationalize it a bit. So in the last two episodes, Yellowstone introduces a new character on the reservation who falls in love with Casey. Love at first sight. And he has to help because her horses have been stolen. There's a little bit of jealousy with his wife. She's showing a little bit of jealousy because, everyone thinks that she's pretty. And so far, he's like, listen, I love my wife. I have a child. I have to do what's best for them. And then she admits her feelings to him. And it would be so antithetical to who he is as a character. A man who abandoned his family. And I say abandoned in the sense that his father sees him as abandoning it, right? But a man who basically left his family, got branded for it because he loves this woman, had a kid with him, has built finally a stable relationship with his wife and child and his other family. And for him to throw it all away over this woman that's been introduced randomly, 4.5 seasons into the show, like, it makes no sense. But I have a sneaking suspicion that's where they're going.
I think, well, I agree. I mean, if we're just looking at kind of like life, yeah, it probably makes no sense. It's introducing drama where none needs to be made. But I have to say, I'm happy about this because I feel like Casey is, he doesn't have like this clear character that all the other personas on the show do. Jamie is clearly Jamie. He's got a very clear, Jamie versus, Kevin Costner. It's very clear that they've got this.
Yeah, but no, we got to talk about that. I'm going to make a note of that.
Beth is obviously, the staunchest, strong woman. Rip is obviously the strong male, supports Beth. Casey didn't really have a role. He's always been this, aw shucks, public life's not for me. I'm just, a guy who wants to break horses. Like, he never really had anything. And his wife, the character named Monica, is super lovable. And in real life, if she was a real person, she'd be a wonderful wife and partner. But to be honest, I feel like there's been a little bit of drama between them. Their son was kidnapped. She's always so negative about, like, money and this world of privilege, and she doesn't want a big house. She just wants to downsize. She doesn't really support her husband or have like any aspirations for him. Like, she doesn't have any arc as far as I'm aware. And that's not wrong in terms of a person. It's just for entertainment value, it's boring. She wants to live in a small house and just be happy as a family. My God, bless her heart. If all people in the world could just be happy with that, we'd have a much more, kumbaya type of world. But it doesn't really help anything. And I feel like Casey's going to leave her because this new lady is going to hopefully instill in him a little bit of kind of like professional motivation, saying, look, dude, you could do this, whether it's politics, whether it's something professional, whether it's whatever his passion is. I'm hoping that this new woman kind of like lights a fire under him and gets him involved in something else. Because right now he's just too like, I just want to help people. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm just a country bumpkin. Yeah.
This is the thing. So Beth had a clear role, right?
Yeah.
And she stayed her course, Beth and Rip.
Yeah.
Right? Jamie had a clear role in that he's a wannabe politician.
Yeah.
Right? But now he's a wannabe politician. Wait, before we get to Jamie, because I have lots to say on him.
A lot.
But Casey his role was initially, I'm a rebel.
Right.
I'm a rebel without a cause.
Yes.
I'm living day to day, man.
Yes.
But his father was the one who made a good point. He said, look, the moment you have a child, you don't live for today, you have to live for tomorrow. Right? So make money, do something with your life so that you leave something for your son. And of course, that's ingrained to him because, 7 generations of ranch, right? Like that is the purpose, is that he's doing all this so that he can leave things for his family. Because that's what his father did, that's what his grandfather did, and so forth. So the role in terms of what's happened is, and you're absolutely right, his role has fundamentally shifted, right? He went from being a rebel without a cause to like a working man, but he didn't fit in as a rancher because of the issues with obviously the Duttons, and then of course with Monica being unhappy there was a lot of problems there. And then that role transitioned again from rancher to police officer, right? Or law enforcer at least, right? Mm-hmm. And in that role, you can see that he's actually kind of flourishing, right? So where I thought his character is going and where I'd like to see it go is, and one of the plot points we haven't really figured out, right? And they've touched upon it here and there, and I imagine they're going to really hammer it in the next episode or two, based on however many are left, right? Is this thing where it gets tangled up with Jamie. So who orchestrated the attack on the family at the end of season 3? Right, where all of them were attacked and were hit and were killed, or not killed, but wounded severely. And Jamie finds out that, of course, he's an adopted child, and that his real biological father may have had something to do.
I mean, I think that was a very good plot twist. Maybe even an understated plot twist, right? Jamie was
almost too understated, because now this man who has this political aspirations, who's always had like a dual loyalty, a split loyalty, right? To his office, maybe even 3 ways. To his office, to himself, because he's acted in a way. And then the third is to the Duttons, right? To his family, which he thought was his family, but now he's kind of divorced himself from that.
Can I interrupt?
Now he's kind of...
Do you think there's more to this Jamie adoption story than we know?
That's what we don't know. I have no idea. It's so bland at the moment. There's no spice to it. There's no, and I think it's because there's no direction. And maybe that's because we're too aggressive and we're not patient enough to wait.
That is right.
But the point is that I imagine that his real father, had everything to do with the attack.
Yes, I agree.
Right?
I think that's pretty well established, right?
They've kind of alluded to it already, but the point is that so Jamie is now gone from I've left the family to I'm actively consorting with a man who destroyed my adopted family, right? He's had a potential heel turn, right? In the sense that now he's going to be maybe not, but I think he's going to turn out to be, or transition himself to be, the clear bad guy against the family, or the antagonist to the family. And
I don't like Jamie as the bad guy, because I think Kevin Costner is the bad guy, but I agree that he's going to be presented as
only in relation to the family.
Yeah.
In the sense that
he's the antagonist.
In the sense that we know that Kevin Costner is not a bad guy, but in the sense that he's the protagonist of this story, right? Of his story.
Yeah.
So for him, it's always been an us, or a Yellowstone versus the world.
Yeah.
Anyone who's not fighting for Yellowstone is fighting against Yellowstone.
Yes.
Right? That's a very terrible way of living that life, but that's what he's done.
Yeah.
And so as far as I'm concerned, in those eyes, Jamie is a traitor. And what I imagine could be an arc, or could set up a showdown, would be Jamie versus Casey, right? Because Casey, who's the new lawman,
the brothers,
gets a tip, or finds out, or figures out somehow that the biological father is involved without Jamie knowing, and then he goes chasing, and then he finds out that Jamie's involved, and then it becomes brother versus brother, because so far nobody else knows that Jamie's adopted except for the father, right? The kids don't know. They all hate him or dislike him based on their own things. So,
is that true?
I get the feeling that Beth has no idea. Beth hates him because he sterilized her, right? And Casey has always been.
Let's not go there, because I have a lot of.
Yeah, but that's why I'm glossing over it. But the point is that, in the sense is that Jamie has made a lot of bad decisions all the time, but his father has still supported him, and now he's going and making another bad decision. Again, bear in mind, I'm in the mindset of Kevin Costner here. So now, we're looking at, again, another example of how Jamie is going to fail this family, or how he's already failed the family, by not going after his biological father, right? Who I think is behind the attacks. We'll know more, I think, in the next couple of things. I think what I'd like to see is for them to scrap this idea of Monica fighting for Casey versus this random woman who they found, and say, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's sidestep the Monica jealous subplot, and let's make it all about Casey versus Jamie, or Casey versus Jamie's father. And, there becomes like this father-son versus biological father-son battle, and then it becomes a political battle between Jamie and the governor, who's going to be Kevin Costner, versus, let's say, a lawman versus bad guy battle versus with Casey versus Jamie's father.
I agree. It seems like it's going that way. And one of the things I think that is forcing it to go that way is the fact that we've lost Sawyer, which I think was a huge loss, and he didn't have to be taken off the show so fast, right? Sawyer being the dude from Lost. What's the guy's real name?
Oh yeah, Josh Holloway.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
And also,
no, but he had to go. He had to.
Why? Why so soon?
Because Rip was never going to let him go.
Yeah, but he added a very good element. You know, he was a very good introduction, a very good special guest for those few episodes. And it's really too bad that I think that he had to leave right away, because this is still a longer term battle, right? The battle is still against the developer versus, you know, the Dutton Ranch, right? And I thought that Sawyer was a very good, it's funny that I still refer to him as Sawyer, but I thought Sawyer was a very good, you know, antagonist and comedic leader of that group, right? And now that group is a little bit kind of like nameless, faceless.
It's a faceless bad guy. Yeah.
The black CEO was out, you know, for purportedly, you know, like harassing someone, which I think was Beth. You know, that new older CEO is pretty bland and hasn't been seen again. Then they've got, you know, some lawyer, you know, who's pretty static figure. So I mean, I thought that whole organization needed someone who is a little bit more compelling as their face, and I thought Sawyer did a very, very good job of that. So I think it's unfortunate that he was taken out so quickly.
I thought it was a natural end to him because, you know, he orchestrated the attack on the farmhands with those two outsiders. I thought it was fine. I thought it was absolutely fine. And what that
no sympathy by Pete today.
No, none for that, because again, and this is a testament to the writers of the show. I can't believe that, given the not evil, but like the things that Kevin Costner and the Duttons have done, and given in general how bad they all are, right? Beth on her own is a terrible person, right? All of them are pretty terrible in their own ways. Casey is, I'd say, the most neutral, but even he's not that great in general. But again, testament to the writers. I'm rooting for them, right? Like, I don't want the Duttons to go down. I you know, and maybe it's a little bit of this David Goliath thing. I want them to take down the big New York-based hedge fund that's trying to redevelop all the land around them.
Okay, let me ask you about side romances. Jimmy the cowboy, right? He had a
interesting,
very cute cowgirl. Maybe that's not the right word. Rodeo girlfriend for a while. Barrel bunny, right?
Barrel bunny is what they called, right? Or bunny now, barrel. Barrel, something like that. Yeah.
Do you think they get back together, or do you think that she's written off this entirely forever?
I have no idea. I grew to like Jimmy over the course of the season.
Jimmy's very sympathetic, right? Jimmy's very sympathetic as an underdog.
I think he represents you and me in the sense that he's totally hapless and useless on a ranch, right? And if you threw me into that same position, I think I would be equally hapless and useless on the ranch. Although now you start to see him.
I feel like that's a challenge. Challenge accepted.
But although, having said that,
let's have the Ethan and Pete cowboy rope off.
So I think he's gotten better as a cowboy now that he's working at that ranch in Texas.
Yeah,
right? You see a little bit of growth there.
Yeah.
So I think he's becoming a little bit more sure of himself. And I think the reality is that he got kicked off of the Yellowstone Ranch primarily because of her. Right? Because she didn't force him, but she pushed him along that way to be a rodeo guy, and he didn't want to be a rodeo guy. Or
you see the power of women. His girlfriend convinces Jimmy, who at the time was basically paralyzed, to go be a bull rider again. Yeah. Right? Now let's hope that the new girl can convince Casey to do something equally professionally reckless.
No. I don't want the new girl. I like Monica. I thought there were some potentially interesting arcs. I'm glad they didn't go through with it. That, they had the double life where she's also now working as an agent. That was a little bit weird, but fine, And it's not that I want to fridge her as a character, but I think she's fine. And unless they actually have something, whatever they want to do with the new character, they can do with Monica. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I've outgrown Monica, but
maybe it's just me. I just don't like to see broken families on TV. All right, like we saw with For All Mankind. I have a problem with it, and I don't know why they need to do it.
Oh man, we haven't even gotten to Succession yet. Just wait.
Oh my God,
also known as Yellowstone of New York.
Yeah, it's the banking version of Yellowstone. Oh my God, Shiv needs to go out.
Okay, so we're going to transition now from Yellowstone to Succession. And for me, having watched both of these shows, having been very passionate about both of them, I feel like they are the same show. Kevin Costner is Logan Roy. Yeah. The Dutton... let's do the comparison.
Let's do...
Yes.
Ethan, let's do one thing. Why don't we compare Succession to Yellowstone and maybe recap the Matrix trilogy on the next episode?
Okay.
We're running out of time now.
Spoiler alert.
And
for
then
next
we
time.
can
Let's do
cap
it in
that for
advance.
the next episode. All right. Yeah, you heard it here first.
Okay, everyone.
All right, so
until next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.